I've always been an anime girl. Not in the cute cosplay, flashy TikTok kind of way. More like the curl up with tea and binge a 26 episode series until 2 a.m. kind of way. Anime was my safe place. My escape from the noise of work, life, and everything in between. That's why I love that website. A small streaming site tucked away in some forgotten corner of the internet. The shows loaded fast, and the best part was the chat room. Every show had one. A live feed of fellow fans commenting, laughing, and throwing theories around as the story unfolded. It was chaotic, nerdy, and perfect. One night, I noticed a username that kept popping up beside mine. He always had something funny to say, clever jokes, and thoughtful takes on the storylines. He made me laugh. We started talking casually, replying to each other's comments, and soon our conversations moved to private messages. His real name, he said, was Bob. At first, Bob was great. We'd stay up late chatting about anime soundtracks, favorite openings, and which characters' deaths hurt the most. He told me he lived a few states away, worked in IT, and spent most of his evenings online. He seemed normal enough. Friendly, smart, and genuinely interested in me. I didn't think twice when I told him my first name, but slowly, the tone of our chats began to shift. He started asking personal questions, not the innocent, "What other shows do you like?" kind, but things like where I lived, what time I got home, and what kind of phone I used. When I dodged his questions, he'd laugh it off. "I'm just curious," he'd say. "It's not like I'm stalking you or anything." But his messages started showing up everywhere I went. No matter what show I watched, there he was in the chat, like he was waiting for me. Then one night, I saw a message that made my stomach drop. "You always watch around this time, huh? Bet your living room light's off right now like usual." My hands froze on the keyboard. How would he know that? Maybe it was just a guess. Maybe. I stopped responding after that, but he didn't stop messaging. His tone got darker. He said I was just ignoring him, that I was different now. He sent long paragraphs, guilt trips disguised as concern. He told me he felt connected to me, like I was the only one who understood. It wasn't sweet anymore. It was scary. When I finally told him to back off, he snapped. He said that he already knew my IP address and that running wouldn't matter. I didn't even understand what that meant, but it terrified me. That night, I blocked him everywhere. I also deleted my account on the streaming site. For days, I couldn't even bring myself to open up my laptop. Every little sound, every notification made me jump. I had started researching how people could trace others online. It was horrifying. The things you can find out from just an IP address, the way some people hide behind screens like masks. That's when I decided to protect myself. I downloaded a VPN. Something I'd only vaguely heard of before, and I set it to connect automatically every time I went online. It felt like a locking door I hadn't realized was wide open. I even changed all my passwords, enabled two-factor authentication, and scrubbed my old usernames from the web. It took weeks, but eventually the fear began to fade. Bob never contacted me again. I don't know if he gave up or if the blocking VPN actually kept him out, and I don't really want to know. It's been over a year now. I still watch anime, of course I do, but I'm a lot smarter about how I do it now. I use legitimate websites, avoid random chat rooms, and I never share personal details, not even small ones. Sometimes people in online fandoms talk about creepy encounters, and I always tell them the same thing. Protect yourself, get a VPN, and use strong passwords. Never assume someone online is who they say they are. Because the truth is, you never really know who's on the other side of that screen. Bob taught me that. I wish he hadn't, but at least now I know better. And maybe in some strange way, that's its own kind of happy ending.
Last year, I was looking to buy a new car. I knew that I wanted to buy one used because I didn't want to make car payments. I just wanted to buy a sort of old one with cash. This can be a risk, but my dad has taught me a lot about cars over the years. I'm able to drive one and look at it, and I can usually tell overall if it's alright or not. If I'm serious about buying it, I will take it to a local mechanic and they can confirm that the car has nothing wrong with it. So I looked on a few websites and I did some Google searches. I was just looking for something like a Toyota Camry or any decent sedan, maybe something 10 years old with not a crazy amount of miles. Soon my searches took me to Facebook Marketplace. I was looking at cars there and I came across a listing that caught my attention. It was a 2015 Camry that had 88,000 miles on it. The photos were kind of bad quality and they appeared to be taken at night. There also wasn't that much information on the car. However, it did make a point to say that it ran great and needed no work. I decided that it was worth looking at, and if I liked it, possibly buying. I contacted the seller, a man named John. He responded to me saying that the car was still available. I asked him if I would be able to look at it, and he said yes. I suggested a date and time, and at first he agreed to it. It was the following evening at 5:30 p.m. That way I could go on my way home from work. I asked where we would meet, and the guy said his house. However, he didn't give me his address right away. Overall, in our conversations of texting on Facebook, he wasn't the best communicator, but he did agree to his house at 5:30 the following day. When I was almost done with work the next day, I texted him to confirm. The guy said that he was working late and that he was going to have to push the time back a bit. I said fine, no problem. He then said 7 o'clock. I said okay to that and went home after work, awaiting the man to text me again. Then at 7, he rescheduled again to 8. Then at 8, changed it to 9. I was getting annoyed and it was getting late. Finally at 8:30, he texted me an address and said that I could go there. I didn't know why he kept pushing the time back. I thought maybe he was working late or maybe something else, but I didn't ask. So I drove to the house, which was a ways away. It was this really quiet neighborhood that had tons of small houses in it. The area seemed kind of creepy. I mean, the houses were all beat up looking. I parked and saw the house number to confirm the address. The house looked pretty average for the neighborhood. There was a driveway, but no cars in it at all. So I assumed the car that I was looking at must be in the garage or something. I texted that I was there, and John responded saying to come to the door and ring the doorbell. That seemed strange because obviously the car was not inside the house. Still, I did what he said. I left my car, walked up to the front step, and rang the doorbell. Not long after ringing, the door opened, but nobody was there. It was like whoever opened the door quickly moved away. I looked inside, and it was pitch dark. All the lights appeared to be off, and I did not see or hear anyone. I stood there just looking around. About 30 seconds later, I heard a man's voice yell from somewhere deep inside the house and to the left. He said, "Come in." I said, "I'm just here to look at the car." He said, "I know, come in." I was feeling pretty sketched out in this moment. I said, "Actually, I think I'll just wait outside for you." I didn't know why I would have to go inside his house to look at the car. Again, there's no way that he had that car inside the house with him, so I'm not going in there. And it looked suspicious as can be. But the guy yelled at me again to come in. At that point, I did walk in, but just a step. It was really just so I could look around more. The guy was not in sight. But then again, I really could not see anything in there at all other than a few feet in front of me. It was just too dark. All the lights were out. I stood there for a minute or so, looking around, and it was quiet. Then the man angrily yelled at me to come in. It really creeped me out. It was much louder than he had yelled at me before, and much more angry. I instantly turned around, walked out of the house, and left. I drove home and then blocked the guy on Facebook. I didn't go back on there and instead got a car on Craigslist. I'm not sure why the guy wanted me to enter the house so bad, but I think it was a trap. Maybe he wanted to rob me or kidnap me. And I never saw the car there. I'm glad that I left when I did. A while back, I was selling a bunch of electronics on Facebook Marketplace. I'm not a dealer or professional seller or anything like that. It was more of a situation where I was just going through all my electronics and I was planning on moving soon. I had never gotten rid of anything really, and there was a bunch of stuff that I didn't use, so I decided to sell it all at once. I was selling a couple of Apple laptops, 2 TVs, an old cell phone, as well as some speakers and a couple of other small things. If everything sold, I would make a couple $1,000. I listed everything at pretty reasonable prices. Well, literally the next day, I got a couple of messages. The first one was from this one woman. She told me that she wanted to buy one of the laptops. I told her that was fine and gave her my address. I said she could come by the next afternoon if she wanted to, and she agreed. So I lived by myself in a house that I was renting at the time. It was kind of small, but like I said, I was going to be moving pretty soon into something a little nicer. So I didn't correspond much with the woman other than to tell her my address and a time. The next day she showed up and I was ready to sell her the laptop. She looked fairly young, but nothing seemed strange about her. I let her in my house and had the laptop on a table near the door. She saw it and looked at it, and I showed her that it turned on and off and worked fine. She mentioned that she saw I was selling some other stuff as well and that she might be interested in that too. I had all the stuff there in the living room in a few boxes. I asked her what in particular, and she said nothing yet, but maybe later. I said okay, and the woman then said that she needed to think about buying the laptop. Then she said bye and left. I was disappointed not to make a sale. I really thought that she would buy the laptop, but it happens. I figured I would easily be able to sell the stuff. I already had received a couple of messages about various things that I was selling. Nothing had materialized yet though. So for the rest of the day, I didn't meet with anyone else or anything. That night, however, I was awoken in the middle of the night. The first thing I remember after waking up is hearing a knock at my front door. I looked at the clock and it was nearly 2 a.m. I didn't know why anybody would be at my door so late. I got up and then left my bedroom. As I did, the knocking not only continued but got louder. Before opening the front door though, I went to a window to look out and see who was there. I'm not going to lie, I was pretty nervous. When I looked out though, I saw 3 men standing aggressively right outside my front door. They were banging on it and right there, like if I opened the door they were going to rush me. I did not open the door. They kept banging on it though. Then I heard them trying to open it as well. I heard one of the guys yell that he heard me. He yelled for me to open the door now. I did not. Instead, I ran to my bedroom and then locked myself in there. Admittedly, I did not have anything to defend myself with. I called the cops and hid in my room. They continued banging on the door and trying to get in. This went on for what felt like forever, but probably 5 minutes. Then I heard them stop kind of suddenly, and maybe a minute later the cops got there. So I think they knew that the cops were coming. I went out and told the officers everything that I knew. They looked around but did not find the men, whoever they were. They must have left. I was just grateful that they didn't get in. The next day I went out and bought security cameras. After thinking about it, I think they knew the woman who looked at my stuff, though I can't prove it. The men never came back, and the woman never messaged me again and didn't show up. It is my belief that she knew I had all those electronics and went to my place to scope it out. Then she told those goons that I would be good to rob. They probably were going to rush me if I opened the door. I didn't live there much longer and was glad to leave. I unlisted all my electronics as well after that and waited and then sold them in my new city instead.
Let me start off with the story and say that males have stalkers too. The story began on Facebook. The female that I'm referring to was part of a mutual group. In the beginning we talked, and I found out she was a belly dancer. I would love to go to a show with belly dancers. After that, it became sexual between us. Now she would call me over the phone at night right before I went to bed. We would do our thing. She would tell me that she lived in a huge house that her late husband and her built together. She then started with that she had to get in shape because she was in her early 40s. I told her that I wanted to have kids, so she had started to say she'd love to have kids with me. Now, we haven't even met in person. Then came the I love yous at the end of our nightly calls. This was weird because at the time I was in my late 30s and I was really struggling with self-confidence. As I'm writing this story, my confidence has gotten so much better. The next thing I know is she wants to meet in person after a popular sports team that we both liked. In fact, she said, "Let's get 2 bedrooms, one to f*** in and one to sleep in." First of all, I would never meet someone at a hotel until I met them in person. So I went on a vacation with my family and took a female friend who was younger than me. I was attracted to her, and my stalker asked me before I went on vacation whether or not if we were sleeping in separate beds. On the first night we did, but for the rest of the vacation we slept in the same bed, but we never had sex. When I got back from my vacation, the female friend that I had went with, we decided to date. My stalker got pissed and said that she would kill her. She also stated that she would tell her about our nightly calls. I told her to go ahead because that had happened before we started dating. Supposedly her brother called me and told me that his sister loved me and really wanted to be with me. I didn't want to be with her though because I thought she was a little crazy. To end the story, she called me when I got off work and yelled at me that I was an and that I deserved to never be in love again. She was crazy, and I hope to never interact with her ever again.
This happened to me as a 12-year-old girl when I had a sleepover at my cousin's house. We had just got done with my cousin Anya's birthday party, and she asked me and my sister if we could sleep over. My parents agreed since it was Anya's birthday and said that we could. Excited, we packed our stuff and got dressed for the fun we were going to have. But little did we know, our fun was only going to last a couple of hours. We sat on the couch eating the rest of Anya's birthday cake while we watched TV. Her parents were going to their grandma's to get Anya's present that they didn't have a chance to give her. At the time, it was about 8 p.m., and it started to get dark out. We were watching a cartoon when we heard a knock at the door. We looked at each other to see who would get up and check. My sister finally got up and looked out the window. She told us that there was somebody on the porch. Since it was dark out and the dark can sometimes make you see things, we thought that there was really nobody there, but we still had suspicions. Me being stupid and thinking that it was some homeless guy trying to get in, I told the person that the door was locked. Anya's parents told us that when they got back, they would yell our names so we knew it was them. But whoever was there didn't say our names, so we were kind of freaked out. My sister looked out, but once more saw no one. Anya ended up unlocking the door even as I yelled at her not to. She peeked her head out but saw no one. She closed the door and locked it again. A couple seconds later, we heard somebody trying to open the back door, but that was locked as well. We started to get even more scared. I grabbed my phone and went to dial Anya's mom's number. I remembered that I didn't have any minutes on my phone, so I couldn't call. We really didn't need to turn the TV off since the stranger already knew we were there, but we did in fact turn all the lights off. We sat on the couch scared and defenseless as we waited for something to happen. We didn't hear anything, so we thought he or she had left. We began watching TV again, but we kept our guard up. As the show ended, we heard one of the windows in the parents' bedroom being messed with. Soon enough, we heard a sliding noise, which meant it had been opened. We started freaking out as our hearts raced with fear and anticipation. Anya, trying to be the fearless one, grabbed a broom and a kitchen knife and started down the hallway. I grabbed her and pulled her back a little as the door slowly opened. We all stepped behind the couch to get as far away from the intruder as we could. I told them that we could run and book it to the neighbors, but they lived about a mile away. The intruder would easily be able to run after us. We saw as the door opened fully, and out stepped a man in his late 40s or 30s from how old he seemed. I don't know how tall he was, but it looked like he was about 6'4". He had a crazy grin on his face, and he had a poorly shaven beard with short curly hair. He slowly made his way towards us while explaining everything. "I'm not going to hurt you. I just want some food and maybe a little bit of your belongings. Just let me do so and nothing will happen to your pretty faces." He said this in a raspy voice. The last part made me cringe as the creep opened the fridge and started placing things in his satchel. Anya, once again trying to be brave, told the man to stop and leave before we called the cops. The man chuckled at her remark and looked down at my phone sitting innocently on the couch. He grabbed it and threw it against the wall with force. I nudged my sister's arm and whispered for her to run to the door while he dug through Anya's belongings. She made her way to the door, unlocking it as quietly as she could, and then opened it. The door, of course, wasn't going to be silent, and it happened to make a loud squeak. The man shot his head to look at the door, and his eyes widened. He tried to run to my sister, but dropped all his stuff on the ground and tripped. My sister had already made her way out towards the gate. I began to run towards the door as well, but the man had managed to grab Anya and pull her back. Her desperate pleas for help made me stop and stare at him as he held her. I didn't know what to do but stare and think of all the things the man could do to me if I tried to stop him. Anya began to thrash around and accidentally ended up elbowing him in his junk. He didn't let go at first, but Anya did it again and he did let go. She ran out the door and so did I. My sister had already opened the gate and we saw her standing there waiting. I asked her why she didn't go to the neighbors and she said she was too scared to go alone. I sighed and we made our way to the neighbor's house. We knocked on their door as hard as we could before a sleepy wife opened it. We ran inside without explaining anything. She got mad at us and started yelling at us, but we told her what happened and she woke up her husband to call the police while she called Anya's parents. The police arrived soon after, but they informed us that the man was gone along with some of the food and stuff in Anya's house. About a month later, the man was soon caught trying to sneak into somebody else's house and he was sent to jail for 5 years. I thankfully got a new phone at the time but lost everything and I had to restart everything I had on my old phone. In 2015, I had a best friend who I will call Jersey. When I first began staying at her house for sleepovers, I was told by her and her older sister that their room had some weird things happening for a while. They each had a single bed parallel to each other which was separated by a lamp. The lamp had a large silver base, and from the top were long, thin, and bendy plastic branches that came out with LED lights from the top. Each branch could be moved and positioned how you wanted it to. They told me one night that the branches would sometimes bend and shake on their own, and the lights would flicker too. There was also a built-in cupboard in the wall, and I was told that it would open and close throughout the night depending on how they left it in. The door to the cupboard was extremely stiff and essentially made a lot of noise when you tried to open or close it, as you would have to push it hard to have it fully shut or open. I had stayed many nights at their house, almost every single weekend, and had witnessed the things occurring multiple times. I had seen the branches of the lamp moving, shaking, and flickering for no reason at all. It wasn't continuous, so it was very odd. I had also witnessed hearing and seeing the cupboard door randomly open on its own, while making loud noises in the process, and slam shut on its own. I had seen this happen even when no windows were open. All these events scared me, but it was one particular sleepover that really freaked me out. It was winter, and me, Jersey, her older sister, and her friend had all decided to have a sleepover. We lit 3 tea light candles and put them on top of the TV, and then spent most of the night just talking, joking, and listening to music. Somehow we ended up speaking about the weird things that had been happening in the room, and we were just messing around and coming up with weird theories. As a joke I said while laughing, I said, "If someone is here, please blow out the middle candle." A few seconds passed, and then the middle candle went out. The 2 candles on either side didn't even flicker or move. We all screamed, and for some reason we all jumped onto the same bed, piling on top of each other. We were all huddled together, arms covering our ears, and we were kind of laughing and crying for a few minutes. No one had the courage to sit up and open their eyes. Eventually we counted to 3 and all sat up. We checked the window and it was closed as it was winter, so it couldn't have been the wind. We were so freaked out and spoke about it for a while. Eventually we went to sleep, but it took a very long time. A while after that, my friendship with Jersey ended, so I haven't stayed there since. I still have no logical explanation for this, and I don't know what happened.
This happened a few years ago. I never really believed that people my age could be dangerous. I mean, I was 13 in middle school, worried about grades, basketball tryouts, and what I was getting for Christmas. The idea that someone could stalk you, stalk me, especially someone from school, just didn't seem real until I met Emily. She was new that year, small, quiet, with straight brown hair and these big green eyes that seemed to study everything. The teachers liked her because she was polite. The other kids didn't really notice her. We got paired up for a science project. I thought it'd be easy. We'd split the work, present it, and move on. But from the moment we started, Emily seemed too invested. She'd always volunteer to do extra work, even the stuff I'd already finished. She'd bring me little things, like snacks or pens, saying they'd help me focus better. One time she gave me a drawing of the 2 of us working together. She said, "I like drawing things I care about." That should have been a red flag. But back then, I just thought she was being friendly. We exchanged numbers so we could coordinate the project. Then she asked for my Snapchat. Everyone at school used it, so I added her. The first week was fine. She sent normal stuff. Photos of her dog, her desk, a random sunset. I'd reply with quick snaps, nothing major. But then, things started to shift. She began snapping me constantly. Good morning snaps, good night snaps, snaps during lunch, and snaps during class. If I didn't open them right away, I'd then get messages like, "Hey, why didn't you open it? I saw you were active. You don't like me anymore?" It was weird, but I didn't want to be rude, so I'd reply trying to be polite. But the messages just kept coming, more and more personal. "You looked really good today. I like your hair like that. I think we'd be perfect together." When she sent that last one, I just laughed it off. I told her that I didn't really want to date anyone. She left me on red. For a few days, she didn't talk to me at all. I thought it was over, but then she started showing up everywhere. In the cafeteria, always sitting just close enough to watch me. After school, waiting by my locker, pretending to look at her phone. Even during gym, sitting on the bleachers while we played basketball, eyes locked on me the whole time. Then came the rumors. She started telling other girls in class that I was taken, that I was hers. When one of my friends, Alyssa, tried to talk to me after class, Emily cornered her in the hallway and told her to stay away from me. Alyssa said Emily's face looked empty, like all of the expression had been drained out of her. That's when I told my parents. They brushed it off. It's just middle school drama, my dad said. She probably just has a crush. It's not a big deal, son. Then one night, I got a snap from her. It was a dark picture of her bedroom, and on the wall she'd written my name over and over in black marker. The caption said, "We belong together, Jared." I blocked her immediately, but she made new accounts, each one with some twisted username like Jared's Angel or Our Future Together, Jared. I blocked them all. But then she found me on Instagram, then TikTok, and then somehow my Discord. It was like she was everywhere. I stopped sleeping well. Every time I got a notification, my stomach would just twist. I started walking home a different route every day. Still, I'd catch glimpses of her across the street, by the bus stop, standing by the school gate. And then came the night that I'll never forget. It was a Friday. My parents were out for dinner on a date. I was home alone playing Xbox, trying to just forget all about the weirdness. My phone buzzed. It was a snap from Emily. The image was blurry, a photo of the sidewalk in the dark. The caption read, "I'm coming to see you, Jared," with a smiling emoji. Now at first, of course, I thought it was just another creepy attempt to scare me. Then I realized something that made my blood run cold. I never turned on ghost mode on Snapchat. That meant that she could see my location. She knew where I lived. I opened up the security camera app on my phone. My dad had set it up a few months ago, and there she was, standing in my driveway. The porch light illuminated her face just enough to see that same blank, unsettling stare. Her hoodie was up, and in her right hand she was holding something shiny. I zoomed in. My heart stopped. It was a knife. I froze. My hand started shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone. She took a step forward toward the door, then another. I dug behind the couch and called 911, terrified. I whispered to the operator, telling them that there was a girl outside my house with a knife. They told me to stay quiet, stay hidden, and wait for the police. Through the security feed, I had watched her walk up to the door. She tried the handle. It rattled, but thankfully it was locked. Then she had pressed her face against the window. I swear she was smiling. She lifted her phone. The doorbell camera lit up as she snapped a picture. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed with a new message. "You shouldn't have ignored me, Jared. We could have had an amazing future together, but you really messed up." I held my breath. I could hear footsteps moving around the porch. The dispatcher said officers were on the way. It felt like forever before I saw the flash of red and blue lights through the blinds. Emily didn't even run. She just stood there when the cops pulled up, still holding the knife loosely at her side. When they ordered her to drop it, she just smiled. That same blank smile I'd seen in class. They took her away. Later on, one of the officers said she had been muttering something over and over. Something about how we were supposed to be together and how he belongs to me. I couldn't sleep for days after that. Every little sound made me jump. I deleted my Snapchat, wiped my account, and changed every password I had. That weekend, my mom made me reinstall Snapchat so she could help me check the settings. That's when I saw it. Ghost mode was still off. She could have been tracking me for weeks. That thought made me sick. So if you're listening to this, please learn from my mistake. Don't think that because you're young or just chatting online that you're safe. Don't assume someone's harmless just because they go to your school. And if you use Snapchat, turn on ghost mode always, because you never really know who's watching. I wish I could say that's all that happened and we're at the end, but not quite. Unfortunately, Emily didn't know how to stay away from me. Let me explain. It's been about 4 years since the night Emily showed up to my house. 4 years since I saw her glowing in the porch light holding that knife like she thought it meant something. I'm 17 now. I'm a junior in high school. Things are mostly normal again. I've moved on, or at least I've tried to. My parents still bring up that night sometimes, usually when they double check that all of the doors are locked before bed. After she was taken away, Emily's family moved out of town. Word was that they had sent her to some sort of mental health program and that she was getting help. Nobody really talked about it after that. People forgot. But of course, I never did. I still can't use Snapchat. I deleted it right after that night. I stayed off most social media, though eventually I made a Facebook account just to keep in touch with friends and family. I thought enough time had passed. I thought she was gone for good. I was wrong. It started with a friend request. The name was Emma. The profile picture was just a forest, nothing strange about it. We had no mutual friends. Normally, I'd ignore that, but something about it made me curious. Maybe because Emma sounded so close to Emily. I clicked on the profile. Only a few posts, all recent. The writing style looked similar. The way she typed her captions, full of ellipses, lowercase letters, and little hearts. I got a chill down my spine. There was one photo that made my hands go cold. It was a blurry image of a coffee shop near my school. The caption said, "I haven't been here in years. I really miss this town." I didn't accept the request. I just stared at the screen for a long time. That night, I got a message. "Hey Jared, it's Emily. Please don't freak out. I just wanted to say sorry." My chest tightened. I didn't reply back. I just blocked the account immediately. Then I went through all of my settings. Private mode, locked messages, everything. A week passed. No messages. I started to breathe a little easier. Maybe it wasn't her. Maybe I was just paranoid. Then my friend Alex told me something weird. He said that someone had been messaging him asking him about me. Said they were a childhood friend who wanted to reconnect. When he showed me the messages, I just knew it was her. Only this time the name was different. It was Marie, but the tone was still the same. The obsession was still there. She was fishing for details, where I hung out, who I talked to, whether I was dating anyone. I told him to block her. He did, but that didn't stop her. A few days later, my mom had mentioned she had got a message too from a nice young girl asking if she knew a Jared from Lincoln High. Not my real high school, by the way. That night, I had checked my Facebook messages yet again. There was another one waiting in my inbox. "I'm really sorry, Jared. I've changed, I promise. I just want to make things right." Attached was a picture. It was a photo of my school's parking lot. My phone nearly slipped out of my hand. I hadn't told anyone what car I drove now. I hadn't posted a single photo of it. She knew. I deleted my Facebook immediately, then my Instagram, and then, well, everything else. Every app, every account, gone. I factory reset my phone. For days I felt watched. I started leaving my curtains closed all the time. I'd catch myself checking over my shoulder walking home. Every sound made me tense. I never told my parents the full story this time. They'd think I was just being paranoid again. But I know it was her. I could feel it. That same fixation, that same quiet presence crawling its way right back into my life. One night before deleting everything, I looked at her last message again, just one last time. "I'll find a way to see you again. You can't stay hidden forever." I blocked her and shut my laptop. I haven't opened a social media app since. I don't post. I don't share. I don't even check my old email. If my friends need me, they text me, and even that feels risky sometimes. I used to think the internet was just a place to hang out, to joke around, and to make friends and play video games. But now, every notification feels like a trap. Every new friend request feels like a threat. What she put me through has really messed up my head. Maybe I'll never know if Emily really changed, or if she really truly went away. But I'm not going to find out. I'm done. Done with the internet. Done with the apps. Done with being found. Maybe when someone like her decides to find you, they always will. My final note. Please be careful to who you connect with online. Even if someone seems kind, curious, or harmless. People can hide anything behind a screen. If you ever get that uneasy feeling, listen to it. And maybe like me, you'll realize that sometimes the safest thing you can do is to just log off for good.
This happened years ago. I'm 21 now, but I was probably around 10 when it happened. It was a Friday night, and I had my friend Emily over. We were sleeping in the living room because that's where the TV was, and we'd been watching movies until late. My parents were asleep in their room down the hall. We had our sleeping bags laid out on the carpet, empty popcorn bowls on the coffee table, and the glow from the streetlights was coming in through the window. At some point in the middle of the night, I woke up. I don't recall why, maybe a noise or just that strange feeling when you know something's off. I rolled over to face the window, and that's when I saw him. There was a man standing outside. He was close, right up against the glass, just watching. The streetlight behind him made his outline clear. I could tell that he was large, and I could see the shape of his shoulders, but that's all I could make out because he was backlit by the streetlight. At first, I thought maybe it was a trick of light or a shadow, but then he moved slightly and I knew he was real. He was standing there, staring at us. I froze for a second, trying to understand what I was seeing. Then I screamed loudly. I ran down the hallway, yelling at my parents. My dad came running out, half asleep, asking what was wrong. When I told him, he grabbed the phone and went over to the front door, but by the time he opened it, the man was already gone. My dad called the cops, and the police came not long after. They looked around the yard, shined their flashlights near the window, and found footprints in the mud by the flower bed. One of them asked my dad if he knew anyone who might want to scare him or our family. My dad just shook his head. They said they patrolled the area for a while and told us to keep the doors locked. A few days later, my dad got a call from a blocked number. He answered it, and whoever was on the other end just breathed into the phone. It happened again a few times within the next several days, but this time the man talked and would curse at my dad over the phone. Eventually, my dad recognized the voice. It was a man he had fired a few months earlier. He let him go for being inappropriate at work, something about comments he'd made to another employee. My dad called the police again, and they told him to keep records of the call. The man kept doing it for a while, always from a blocked number. Finally, my dad was able to get a restraining order because in one of the man's angry phone calls, he let it slip that he had been the one coming to our house at night. He had been staring through our windows at night, waiting for my dad to mess up and leave a door unlocked. Nothing else ever happened after we got the restraining order, but it stuck with me. Even now, I can still picture that dark shape outside the window. I never sleep with curtains open anymore. If I see a light through a crack in the blinds, I can't help but imagine somebody standing there, looking in. It's been over 10 years, but I still check every window in my room before bed.
"6 years ago, I was a new mom learning to balance my job, family, and health. My social life primarily existed on the internet at this time, and Facebook and Instagram were the main ways I kept in contact with others. I received a friend request from Steven, an old friend from high school. I accepted, and everything was normal for a while. After a couple of months, Steven sent me a DM asking how I was. The conversation was fine, but it didn't take too long for me to realize that this wasn't the Steven I knew. They had the same first and common last name. His profile picture was not a picture of himself, so I never realized this was a different person. Either way, we had several mutual friends, and he didn't do anything especially creepy, so I just left him on my friends list. He would occasionally message and chat, and he just seemed like someone that was a bit socially awkward but harmless. I would respond, but kept the conversations brief. One day I got a text from him, which surprised me because I had never gave him my number. I asked how he got my number, and he said from my website, which was fair. I'm an artist, and I had my email and phone contact information on my art site. He began texting several times a day, and I would just give short responses followed with something like, "At work, talk to you later," or "Dinner with the family, have a good evening." He started talking about his new boyfriend, saying that he was one of the few gay conservatives and things were going well. I told him I'm glad he has a partner that aligns with him, and I wish them well. He then began talking a lot about politics and was really aggressive about it, and I told him it was probably best we didn't have those kind of conversations. His messages began turning sexual, where he would ask if I wanted to hear about the sex parties him and his boyfriend threw. I told him no, I didn't really know him and that's really inappropriate. One day I was busy with work and returned to my phone to see dozens of messages from him, angry that I wasn't responding, and he went on and on sharing very graphic sexual stories. I responded and I told him I had been polite to him because he seemed like he hadn't had many friends, but that this was just way too much for me, and I told him I was blocking him. I told him that I didn't even believe he was gay and he was just saying it in an attempt to make me think he's harmless. I proceeded to block him on all social media and I blocked his phone number too. A couple of days later, I had started getting lots of friend requests from accounts that I didn't have mutual friends with. The accounts also had no other friends. I knew they were probably fake pages that he was creating. I would block them and move on. Then I began getting phone calls and texts from fake phone numbers. Same thing. I would block them and move on. I messaged our mutuals to ask what they knew about him, and none of them knew him. He had just requested them and they accepted. He began sending requests to my friends, family, and other women in my dance troupe. I let everyone know that they needed to block him. For months, not a day passed that I didn't get a weird call or friend request or DM. It would range from a normal, "Hey, how are you?" to vague threats of, "I could make you talk to me if I really wanted to." He lived several hours away, so I wasn't particularly concerned. Things got quieter, until one evening my notifications started going off like crazy, and my phone was ringing with unknown numbers. It was on my art page. Probably 15 different accounts had posted porn on my page, or things like, "OP is a whore," or "OP is a thief." I knew it was him because he had also accidentally posted from his real account. Yeah, a real genius. I didn't realize that I'd never blocked him from that page. He also sent a message to my art page saying sorry for that and he missed his friend and that he was just trying to get my attention. I didn't respond, blocked him, and called the police. Since stalking and harassment laws are awful, they didn't do anything. Later that night, I woke up around 2 a.m. for no reason other than I was just having trouble sleeping. I was up for a while playing on my phone when I had started to hear a strange sound coming from the living room. It was back and forth between quiet cracking and scratching. At the time, we lived in a large ranch house, and the living room was at the other end of a long hall. I got up thinking my cats were into something, or maybe after a mouse. I flipped on the living room light, and the sound stopped. I scanned around looking for my cats, when I noticed an open window. Our windows were large from floor to ceiling, and opened by pulling them down from the top. The top of the windowsill had pry marks, and the lock was broken. Thankfully, this house was old and the windows didn't open easily, and he had only been able to open it about 8 inches. I woke up my husband, got my son out of his room, and called the police. I knew it was Steven. It was way too big of a coincidence that he blew up that day and then someone tried to break into my house in the middle of the night. We couldn't prove it was him. There was no evidence other than what had happened that day that pointed to him. The police spoke to him, and I believe that it scared him enough to actually leave me alone. I was obviously horrified at the time, and I began looking up anything I could find about him. I wound up finding his YouTube channel, which solidified my fears even more. He frequently talked about violence and would show off his gun collection. This led me to finding his real last name. I googled his name and found that he had been arrested 2 years prior for holding a woman against her will in a hotel and attempting to assault her. Thankfully, she was able to escape with only a bloody lip. We moved not long after. I wanted neighbors and off of the farm. I removed my phone number from my site, and I logged down all of my social media. I still sleep with a baby monitor in my son's room because I'm so scared of someone coming in at night. His YouTube channel was shut down after a bit, and I haven't heard from him since.
There was this kid who was briefly at our school for a few months in high school. I will call him Tommy for the story. I come from a town where the people you went to school with together in kindergarten were the same kids you graduated high school with. Tommy moved to our school about halfway through our freshman year of high school. When new kids came to our school, everybody flocked to them. The first time he and I had a class together, I remember the teacher asking him if he had his books yet. He responded with, "My wife never confirmed my school schedule with the front office." I remember everybody thought it was funny. You're 14 years old and you have a wife. He was clearly trying to be funny and get a laugh from the class and the teacher. My friends and I were skating after school one day and we saw Tommy. I remember talking with my friends about the joke he said in class, and we all became oddly infatuated with this kid. It took some time, but after about a week of letting him hang out with us, he became one of the boys. One of my buddies asked if we could go to sleep at his house on Friday night, since we would do sleepovers often with each other on the weekends. He looked shocked when we asked, but the next day at school, he did say it was okay after asking his parents. My buddies and I rode our bikes to where he lived, with clothes for the night and our skateboards strapped to our bags. We met his family, who at face value seemed completely fine. Then things got a little weird. First, his dad had a huge weapons collection. At the time, I thought it was awesome. He even took us out into a field by a canal to shoot some of his assault rifles. Next, we met Tommy's wife. Turns out he wasn't trying to be funny in class, and she was real. She was also 26, and the whole wife situation with the 14-year-old boy was definitely strange to say the least, but we didn't intrude or ask a ton of questions. They would like to hold hands. At the time, we thought this was awesome. It was like dating a senior when you're a freshman. Things kind of got to a new level of weird though when Tommy's dad had his arm around Tommy's mom, and his arm was around another girl that couldn't have been terribly older than we were at the time. Apparently, they were both his wives. We then spent about 2 hours praying with the family in the living room. I was raised Catholic, but couldn't determine which religion they were practicing. Once we finished with that, we went outside to start skateboarding. After a few minutes, his dad came outside and ordered us to get into the house. Tommy's mother then had us stand in a line outside of the bathroom to take a bath. I don't know why we agreed to the bath, but we took a bath one at a time, and I remember we were not allowed to drain the water from the tub. I was the last one to bathe, unfortunately. Also, all the mirrors in the house were covered with bed sheets. I don't know the significance of this, but to me it makes more sense not to have mirrors at that point. We were told to go to bed even though the sun wasn't even down yet. Tommy went to bed with his wife. The three of us that remained just laid there in one single queen-sized bed and talked about how much fun we weren't having. The final straw for the night was when we heard Tommy's parents in the other room. It was almost 11 p.m. and we decided to just get on our bikes and leave. It was dark out and we had to ride through some bad neighborhoods, but we made it safely to a buddy's house. Tommy was pulled out of school about a week later and we never saw him again. I don't know what that family was into. Maybe it wasn't creepy at all and I just didn't understand. The only thing I know is we felt very uncomfortable. Out of curiosity, years later, I went to find Tommy on Facebook, and I can confirm that him, his mother, father, and one of his sisters had all died. There were no public records of what happened to them, or if they died at the same time. I never felt in danger at his house during that sleepover, but it was a disturbing moment in my life when I think back to it. When I was a kid, I used to go to my best friend's house for sleepovers all the time. I would fill my backpack up on Friday morning and ride the bus home with him to stay the weekend. I didn't have a bad life, it was great, but we didn't have a lot of money at my house and we lived in a bad area. My friend had a nice house and it was just different from mine. It felt like an escape from my own life, even though my life wasn't horrible and I wasn't trying to escape it. He lived on a country road and had neighbors not terribly far, but not super close either. He had a large property that was long and went far back. He had about 3 sheds that looked like little log buildings or cabins that were very homemade and creepy looking at night, and of course surrounded by woods in the back. When everybody went to sleep at his house, everything was off. No TV and no lights. It was pitch black and dead silent, except for his mom's box fan, so when we wandered around the house at night, it got creepy understandably. One night we were up late playing on his PS2, and once we turned it off for the night, we couldn't sleep. So we went roaming around the house to see what we could do. His kitchen was lined with windows behind the counter that faced the backwoods, the sheds, and they had a large glass screen door as well. So we went to get some pop, which we weren't supposed to have late at night, and when my friend opened the fridge, I was sure that I saw a light in the shed closest to the house. The shed was still kind of far, but right out from where the woods got a little thicker, so you could see it clearly. Once I noticed it, I shut the fridge door almost on my friend's hands, and when he got mad, I told him why, but there was no light out there anymore. I talked him into waiting at the glass door with me to show him that I knew I saw something. About 10 minutes later, a light went on, more like a flashlight with the swaying. You could see it bouncing around and reflecting off the 2 little windows in that shed. It freaked us out, and we ran to his room and talked about all the possibilities, and eventually we fell asleep. The next weekend, like usual, the same circumstances happened, and I stayed at his house again. This time, we wanted to see if we could see the light in the shed again. So after his parents went to sleep, we waited a while and made our way to the windows. When we got there, we didn't see anything. We went and played some games in his room, and then went back down to the kitchen probably at around 2 a.m. When we went out, we still didn't see anything. For some reason, we kind of talked each other into going outside. I honestly can't remember what for, but I imagine it had something to do with the shed or whatever. We went out the sliding door onto his porch, which was very high off the ground. We were trying to be very quiet, even though his parents' room was on the other side of the house. We got to the porch, but I was too scared to go off it, and I wanted to go back inside. But once I was about to tell him that I wanted to go back in, we heard and saw the door to the shed open. Coming out was some skinny, old, disheveled-looking person, probably a homeless man, but to us kids, he might as well have been the devil. We didn't move at all. I guess it was out of fear, but the guy started walking towards our direction a little. I doubt he even knew we were there, but something snapped me out of it, and I just remember screaming and running to the door with my friend. When we closed the sliding door, we looked back and saw the man running after us. We didn't even lock the sliding door, we just booked it for his parents' room. We woke them up and they got up, looked around the house, and saw that the sliding glass door was open, but they reassured us there was probably an animal that got in, and they would look tomorrow. My friend and I barricaded ourselves in his room for the rest of the night. When we finally woke up around noon, his dad was outside cleaning around the shed. He found a pocket knife and a bunch of wood that was carved into things. His dad brushed it off as already being there, probably because of all the old random junk around. It was brushed off as our imagination, probably due to the fact that we always played like that. Now grown up, years later, my friend's dad told us the story of that night, but at the time he didn't want to scare us any further. But after we went to bed that night, he checked the basement and found the man down there and had to kick him out of the house. It was a homeless old man that wanted to steal food and other belongings to sell. My friend's dad said that the old man left peacefully and didn't get aggressive or violent at all, which was good. But I'm glad that he sent us kids up to bed that night after seeing the sliding door open. Because as a kid, I would have been scared out of my mind seeing that man in my friend's house. This is something that happened back when I was looking to buy a phone on Facebook Marketplace. For some background, I was a 21-year-old woman at the time and needed a new cell phone. My iPhone was old, outdated, and also out of storage. It only had 64 gigabytes on it, so I knew that I could get one cheap on Facebook Marketplace as I didn't have the money to buy a brand new cell phone. I looked around and found one pretty quickly that seemed like a good deal. It was not too good to be true, but still a good price. I contacted the seller through Facebook and was told that it was still available. I was glad to hear that and said that I wanted to buy it, so the guy told me that I could come over and pick it up. This was the first red flag. I knew that it could be dangerous to go to a stranger's house to buy something, so I actually offered to meet at a public place instead, but the guy said no. He had an excuse though, saying that his car was broken and he just couldn't get out right now. I didn't want to pry into his personal business and figured that it would not be a big deal, so I said okay. We arranged for a time, which was the following evening. He gave me his address, which I drove to. It was an apartment complex about 15 minutes away. It was really old and crappy, one of the worst apartment buildings I've ever seen, and it was in a bad part of town too. So that was the second red flag. Still, I went on anyways. I let him know that I was there, and he buzzed me in. His apartment was on the 4th floor, and I took the stairs up because the elevator was broken. The whole building looked really bad. I got up to his door and knocked on it. He quickly opened it. He had sort of long, greasy-looking hair. He had big glasses and wore a large t-shirt and shorts. The guy gave me a bad vibe right off the bat. He told me to come in, and he seemed really awkward but also creepy. Some guys are just shy, and that's fine, but this guy was just awkward in a creepy way. He made small talk a bit with me, and I wasn't too creeped out yet, but his apartment was super messy. There was clutter everywhere, and it smelled bad. He asked me if I lived nearby and how old I was and a few other basic questions. I answered him with brief answers, but I didn't see the phone anywhere. I asked him if he had it, and he said yes. Then he told me to follow him, which I did not like. I was hoping that he would have just had it there. I followed him through the living room, down a small hallway, and then into a bedroom. As we were walking, he said out of nowhere maybe we should hang out sometime. I just kind of laughed and said, "Oh, maybe." Then we got to his bedroom, and he said he keeps all his phones in the closet. This was another weird thing. He opened this door, which was a pretty large closet. I saw inside there was a pile of like 100 cell phones on the ground. He had all sorts. iPhones, Androids, both old and new. They were just there on the floor in a pile and not organized at all. I asked him why he had so many phones. He said he likes to collect them, but also sell them and make a few bucks. Then he told me that he has his methods of getting them that some people may frown upon. I didn't know what he meant by this, but the way he said it seemed like he was insinuating that he stole them or something. I was just like, okay. Then he dug around and found the iPhone. He showed it to me and asked if this was the one that I wanted. I didn't even remember at that point anymore, but I just said yes. In reality though, I no longer wanted to buy it. I held the phone pretending to look at it. He told me it works fine and he had wiped it clean and jailbroke it. Then out of nowhere he asked me if I wanted to spend the night at his place. It was so random and also creepy. I said no thanks, I had plans. Then he said maybe another time, and I said yeah, maybe. Really I just wanted to get out of there. I quickly thought on my feet. I said that I forgot the cash in my car and I would get it real quick. I acted like I was really disappointed and upset, and I think my acting was good because it seemed like he believed me. Really, I had the cash in my pocket. So I walked out and I said that I would be right back and then left. He stayed in his apartment. As soon as I got out, I sprinted out of the building, ran to my car, and drove home. I blocked him and got off of Facebook. Looking back at that, it was really creepy. I don't know what was going on there, but I'm glad I left when I did. In 2015, I had a best friend who I will call Jersey. When I first began staying at her house for sleepovers, I was told by her and her older sister that their room had some weird things happening for a while. They each had a single bed parallel to each other which was separated by a lamp. The lamp had a large silver base, and from the top were long, thin, and bendy plastic branches that came out with LED lights from the top. Each branch could be moved and positioned how you wanted it to. They told me one night that the branches would sometimes bend and shake on their own, and the lights would flicker too. There was also a built-in cupboard in the wall, and I was told that it would open and close throughout the night depending on how they left it in. The door to the cupboard was extremely stiff and essentially made a lot of noise when you tried to open or close it, as you would have to push it hard to have it fully shut or open. I had stayed many nights at their house, almost every single weekend, and had witnessed the things occurring multiple times. I had seen the branches of the lamp moving, shaking, and flickering for no reason at all. It wasn't continuous, so it was very odd. I had also witnessed hearing and seeing the cupboard door randomly open on its own, while making loud noises in the process, and slam shut on its own. I had seen this happen even when no windows were open. All these events scared me, but it was one particular sleepover that really freaked me out. It was winter, and me, Jersey, her older sister, and her friend had all decided to have a sleepover. We lit 3 tea light candles and put them on top of the TV, and then spent most of the night just talking, joking, and listening to music. Somehow we ended up speaking about the weird things that had been happening in the room, and we were just messing around and coming up with weird theories. As a joke I said while laughing, I said, "If someone is here, please blow out the middle candle." A few seconds passed and then the middle candle went out. The 2 candles on either side didn't even flicker or move. We all screamed, and for some reason we all jumped onto the same bed, piling on top of each other. We were all huddled together, arms covering our ears, and we were kind of laughing and crying for a few minutes. No one had the courage to sit up and open their eyes. Eventually, we counted to 3 and all sat up. We checked the window and it was closed as it was winter, so it couldn't have been the wind. We were so freaked out and spoke about it for a while. Eventually, we went to sleep, but it took a very long time. A while after that, my friendship with Jersey ended, so I haven't stayed there since. I still have no logical explanation for this, and I don't know what happened. A while back, I was selling an iPad on Facebook Marketplace. I took a few pictures of it and then posted the listing online. I remember that sometime the next day, I got a message from somebody on Facebook about it. However, it was not what I expected. The person's profile was a creepy picture of a clown, and their name was just Clown. I thought that it was kind of weird, but they asked if the iPad was still available. I said yes. I thought that maybe the person was young or had that profile as a joke or something. They said that they wanted to buy it and asked me when they could. This person seemed normal enough through our messages, so I said they could buy it. We agreed to the next day at 6 p.m. I gave this clown person my address, which looking back I should not have done. I didn't think of it at the time, but that could be a dangerous thing. I lived in a house with my wife and child, and I didn't think that anything bad could happen. I would be home the whole time and was just going to sell an iPad quickly. The following evening at 6 p.m., no one showed up. I texted the clown on Facebook and asked him if he was still coming. He never responded. This happens though. There's people all the time that say they'll buy something and then they never show up. It's rude to make an appointment and not even let me know that you're not going to be there, but still, it happens. The night went on and I got no response and nobody showed up. I was curious to see who this person even was, because their Facebook profile was just them dressed as a creepy looking clown. So that same night, I happened to be up late. I'm a bit of a night owl, and it was probably like 11 o'clock p.m. I saw that I got a message on Facebook from the clown. I thought that maybe he was going to say why he didn't come earlier, but instead he said, "I'm here." I was confused. I thought maybe he had been there earlier and the message didn't show up until now for some reason. I texted back saying, "Wait a minute, are you here right now at 11 p.m.? He did not respond. I got up and walked over to the living room. I looked out of a window and saw the clown there. There was this creepy looking clown just standing in our front yard looking at the house. I looked out of the window and saw him there. There was a creepy looking clown just standing in our front yard looking at the house. He was just standing there not moving. It was really creepy. I texted the guy again, but he didn't answer. I could see that he was not on his phone. I went over to the door and opened it just a crack. I yelled out to the guy asking why he was here so late. He did not respond. He just stood there staring at me. I told him I wasn't going to sell him the iPad now. I asked him to come back at a normal hour and not dressed as a clown. Still, he said nothing and just kept standing there staring at me. I was too creeped out. Then he started to walk slowly towards me. I quickly shut the door, locked it, and walked away from the door and walked over to the window again. I watched him and he walked up the driveway a bit and then turned around and walked back. He got to the street and then slowly walked away. When he was out of my sight, I went on Facebook and told him not to come back. Thankfully, he didn't. I never saw him again, but I stopped using Facebook Marketplace after that. A few years ago, I was selling my bike on Facebook Marketplace. And when I say bike, I mean bicycle, not motorcycle. This one was nice though. It was like $1,000 bike and in great condition. I live near the city and I had just got it a few years prior. I used it a lot, not only to get around, but also for exercise. However, I now had a car and the bike was taking up too much space. So I listed it at $700, but was realistically going to accept as low as $500 for it. For the first couple of days, there was not much interest. Then finally a guy messaged me and said that he would take the bike. I found it interesting how he didn't ask if it was available still or try to negotiate. All he said was, "I'll take it." This was good though, because maybe he would pay the full price. So I arranged a time and location for us to complete the sale, and he agreed to it all. I chose the location as a shopping center parking lot not too far away from my work that was kind of on the way home. I told the guy when I usually got out of work, and I said I would let him know when I was off and he could head over then. He said he was not that far away and that was fine with him. So I got off work a little late, but was done by about 6 o'clock. Then I texted the guy and I drove to the location. I had the bike in the back of my car, which luckily fit because I have an SUV, but I did have to take the front wheel off. So when I got to the shopping center, it was very quiet. The parking lot was huge, a lot larger than is needed for the few stores that are there. The main store is a grocery store, and there weren't really any cars that were near me. I got out, and as I waited for the man, put the wheel back on the bike. He said he was on his way, but I was still waiting a sort of long time. Then, kind of out of nowhere, I saw this guy come walking through the parking lot. He was about average height, skinny, pretty young looking, and had a buzz cut. His clothes were baggy, and overall the guy seemed a little bit sketchy. I wasn't quite sure where he had come from, but he introduced himself to me and shook my hand. He seemed really friendly right off the bat, and it put me at ease. After a little bit of small chit-chat, the guy saw the bike and said that it looked great. He said how he had been looking for a nice bike to ride around the city. The guy told me that he needed a means of transportation. He said he had the cash on him, and he just wanted to sit on the bike and see how it felt. I told him to go ahead. I trusted him. Well, the guy got onto the bike and said that he wanted to test it out for a second. Then he very quickly started riding away through the parking lot about as fast as he could. I realized that he was stealing my bike. I very quickly ran to my car, got in, and started it up. I saw the guy still going through the parking lot. Because things were so quiet, I was able to quickly drive through the parking lot after him. I saw which street he was going down. Now, this area is a little outside the city. This meant that there were not as many places the guy could go, and the roads were not quite as busy. So it would be easier for me to follow the man, and he didn't have a lot of alleyways he could ride down or sidewalks. It was pretty much just roads and some businesses, but off the roads was either parking lots or grass. There were some sidewalks, but they just went along the roads. So, as nice as my bike was, I could obviously go much faster than the guy in my car. I caught up to him as he rode my bike to the end of that street. I honked at him, but he ignored me. Then he turned, and I turned as well. I thought about calling the cops, but I figured I would follow him for a while and see where he was going and hoped that maybe he would give it up. After turning, the guy looked back at me and then tried to go faster. I was still able to keep up with him though. We went down that street for a while and then turned again. He turned quickly a couple of times and I nearly lost him. I obviously couldn't make quick turns like he could. Then he also went through a red light, which luckily he didn't get hit by a car, but I had to wait for the light. When it turned, I kept following him. I caught back up, and a while later he turned off into a neighborhood. This neighborhood was not very nice, but it was very large. The whole chase had been going for like 5 minutes now. He rode down one street and then turned. I nearly lost him. Then he went down another street, and just as I turned on it, I saw him going up a driveway. I watched him ride the bike into the front yard, and then he got off, opened the front door to a house, and brought the bike inside the house. All the houses and yards on this street were small and not very nice, and there were quite a few of them. I drove down the street and kept my eye on the house, and then I pulled into the driveway. Then I got out, walked up to the front door, and started knocking on it. There was no answer at first, which did not surprise me. I kept banging on the door though, and I yelled at him to open. I threatened to involve the police. Nobody answered still, but I was not going away. Then, finally, after like 5 minutes, I heard someone inside. They walked over to the front door and then opened it, but the man was not there. It was a different guy who looked annoyed and asked me what my problem was and why I kept banging on the door. I told him that I saw a guy who stole my bike enter the house. He claimed that he didn't know what I was talking about. I asked him if he lived there, and he said yes, this was his house. I asked him who else lived there, and he claimed no one did. I told him that I knew I saw a guy go into the house there. The guy claimed that he knew nothing about it and that I had to leave. I didn't want to, but I couldn't barge into the house. The guy slammed the door in my face and locked it. I knew that guy probably was just the other guy's friend and obviously was covering for him. I walked back to my car in the driveway thinking of what I should do next. I could stay there and keep harassing these guys, or I could call the police. Right as I was arriving back at my car though, I heard something behind me. I looked and saw the guy who stole my bike. He was coming out of the small backyard that the house had. Then he stopped and threw a rock at me. It missed, but I quickly got back in my car to protect myself. He then threw another rock which hit my car. Then he threw another. I backed out of the driveway, and when I was leaving, I saw the guy turn and run off into the backyard and out of my sight. Then I called the cops. I wasn't going to sit there and let him throw rocks at me. The cops got to the house like 10 minutes later. I told them everything that happened, and they knocked on the door of the house. It turned out that the guy who answered the door for me did live there, and he rented the house with a roommate. But neither of the people on the lease was the guy that stole my bike. He was a friend of them though, so the guy was lying to me. I guess the guy who stole my bike was just staying at the house or something, or maybe he was just friends of theirs and decided to go there after stealing it. Nevertheless, he was gone now and he left on my bike. I went home disappointed and figured that I had lost out. I was hopeful that the police would find my bike, but I didn't really think it would happen realistically. I mean, the guy could be anywhere by then, and it was just a bike. It's not like it was some $1 million car. However, as a try, I scoured both Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist as well as eBay for my bike over the next few days. I thought there was a good chance he might try to sell it quick, seeing as though it was hot. But there was also a good chance that he would use it to flee the city, or he would hide it. However, 4 days later, I saw a listing on Craigslist. It was 100% my bike. The city was the same one that the guy had been in, and it was the exact same make and model that my bike was. I told my friend Jake about it, and he texted the guy saying that he wanted to buy the bike. The guy was selling it at $450, which would guarantee to sell quick. When Jake texted him, thankfully he hadn't sold it yet and agreed to sell it to Jake. So the next night was the arranged sale. I drove Jake there and we knew what we had to do. The meeting point was another parking lot across town. When we got there, sure enough, there the guy was with my bike. It was the same man who stole it. I parked kind of far away and made sure that he wouldn't see me. Jake got out and I was really nervous. I saw them shake hands as I stayed hidden in the car. Then Jake pretended to look at the bike. At once, he hopped on it and took off. The guy started running after him, but Jake was gone. I started the car and began driving out of the parking lot. Jake went down the street and the guy could not keep up. I saw him stop running and the man was now walking along the side of the road. I drove by the guy, honked my horn, and waved goodbye as he gave me the double bird. Then I drove a few blocks over and picked up Jake and my bike. I'm glad that I got it back, and I decided not to sell the bike anymore. I still have it, and I can't believe that we were able to steal it back. However, I would not recommend doing something like that. It could have been dangerous. Looking back, it probably would have just been a better idea to notify the police of the bike being for sale. Either way, I'm glad that the man didn't get away with it.